Police in Prince William County are now required to check the immigration status of the people they arrest if they have any reason to believe that the person is in the country illegally. The new immigration crackdowns have come, though, with a high price tag and mixed feelings of support and opposition. And joining us now to discuss that is Letiecq, the president of Help Save Manassas, an advocacy organization that seeks to reduce the number of illegal aliens in the Manassas community, and John Steinbach of Mexicans Without Borders, a nonprofit organization that supports Hispanics in our area. Gentlemen, thank you for both being here today. Let's start with you, Greg. Is this a good idea, and why?
It's not only a good idea, it's an absolutely necessary idea. We've been overrun by a wave of illegal aliens for the past 5 or 10 years that have really created a dramatic public safety issue in the county, as well as harming the quality of life in the community. We've seen residential overcrowding, some very disturbing crimes, issues where the community doesn't feel like it's the community that most of us moved to and chose to live in. And to some degree, there's the cultural facet of this, whereas the famous press one for English, that now we have to act like we're guests in our own country to some degree. But probably much more disturbing are issues such as the human slavery and sex trafficking crimes that the Washington Post reported on today.
John, safe to say you would strongly disagree with that?
Well, yes, I certainly would. This resolution is a disaster for public safety. It's leading to fears of racial profiling in the Latino community, both amongst those who are undocumented and those who are documented. In the broader immigrant community, I've talked with some of the pastors in the African churches. They say that the parishioners are scared to death. And the issue is that virtually any immigrant family, and in fact a very large number of families in general, have at least one person in their family who may not be up to date on their documentation. And so they're very, very concerned. What we're afraid is going to happen is what Chief Dean argued when he spoke against the resolution last July, and that is that it'll be very hard to prevent racial profiling, and most importantly, it will discourage people from coming forward and reporting crimes, that people will go underground. So these are some of the issues, not to touch on the financial aspects, which we can maybe talk about later.
Well, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to hash out all of these issues, and we're going to also take some calls here on News Talk Today. And we've got Earl from Woodbridge, who has a very poignant question about this subject as well. Let's take his call first, right off the bat. Earl?
Yes, good afternoon. I'd like to know how the gentleman from Mexicans Without Borders justifies the expenditure of my tax dollars to educate and provide health care for those who aren't citizens in this country.
John? What do you have to respond to that?
Two things. First of all, it's unequivocal. The Supreme Court ruled in 1982 that children have a right to be educated regardless of their immigration status. The rationale was that, do we really want kids out of school, on the streets, joining gangs, and so on? This is the law of the land. Regarding tax dollars, it's very important to remember that the immigrant community, both documented and undocumented, pay taxes. In many cases, they own property. They have mortgages. They rent. They pay taxes. They pay their sales tax. So they are contributing. And so I would throw the question back and would say, if they are contributing to the economy, and we can debate whether or not they're paying the full bill, what right do we have to take that money and not give them anything in return for their taxes?
Greg, is this a strain on our economy?
It's absolutely a strain on our economy. The Center for Immigration Studies showed that illegal aliens will consume $22,000 more of taxpayer resources than they provide back into the community through tax payments, primarily through sales taxes. I think the caller really raises a substantial question here, in that what is the obligation of American citizens to subsidize the unlawful behavior of foreign nationals who violate our immigration laws? There is no obligation. We are not required to subsidize illegal behavior, and I believe the citizens have consistently raised this issue with their elected representatives in both the United States Senate and in the Virginia General Assembly, that it's intolerable that they're being forced to provide their wealth to illegal aliens.
But John says this is going to lead to racial profiling. It's also going to force victims of crimes to not want to come forward? How do you come up with a panacea or some sort of solution so that that's not the case?
It would have been extremely helpful during this debate if Mexicans Without Borders in particular had not gone and made all sorts of crazy claims about what this policy would do to engender fear and chaos within their community in order to gain political support. Most of these claims of racial profiling, the people would be pulled over, the Gestapo would come banging on people's doors, is just utterly ridiculous. It's never been supported by the claims of the Prince William County Police Department nor of the elected officials. And now the illegal alien community is picking up and running for the hills, primarily because of the fear that the activists on the other side have engendered in the community. And now we're being held responsible for that. I'm sorry, it doesn't quite work.
You say it's fear-mongering.
Yeah, and I would say to the contrary. We have been working the last 5 to 6 years very, very closely with the Prince William Police Department, meeting with Chief Dean, meeting with Major Bernard, meeting with Captain Rudy over in Woodbridge, setting up meetings in the community, inviting the police to come and talk to the community to assuage and to allay the fears. What we are doing now is bringing in lawyers, to trained legal immigration professionals to talk to the community about what their rights are, what this resolution means. We have never, ever engaged in fear-mongering. To the contrary, we have always encouraged the community to come forward, to cooperate, to report crimes, and nothing has changed on this.
But is there, would you say, whether or not you have contributed to any misinformation, do you believe there's a lot of misinformation out there? Are there plenty of people who are perhaps undocumented and don't have a good grasp on the current situation and the laws there now?
People are very afraid. I would agree with that. There probably is a lot of misinformation out there, and we're doing the best to correct that and put out accurate information. The last thing in the world we want is for people to be scared and to leave the community. We want to build community, not to tear it down.
All right, we have Gary from Fairfax who has another question regarding taxpayer dollars and undocumented immigrants. Gary, you're on News Talk. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. I do have a lot of friends that are Hispanic. And whether they're documented or not documented, we need to be friends with them. But, you know, what I'm hearing from most of them is a lot of them work for their own companies. They don't work for an employer, and they're making the money tax-free, and they're not paying Uncle Sam their part of it. So there is a lot of people out there, and I'm talking quite a few in the, like, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC businesses and everything, that are making money, and they're not claiming it, and so they're not paying taxes, and they're not paying into society, and they just save the money and send it back home so that when they go to retire, they can go back over there and live very comfortably.
Greg, is he right?
I believe so. We've gotten consistent reports from the community of this happening, very often coming from American business owners who are trying to follow the rules and are being undercut by other companies that will hire illegal aliens, such as the company that was reported in the Virginia Pilot today that had one of the business owners is now being sentenced to 14 months in jail for hiring illegal aliens for a Comcast subcontractor. The business owners that are trying to do the right thing and have to pay wages that an American can live on are being undercut terribly. It's destroying the small business community, and it's definitely harming the ability of particularly minority young workers to be able to enter into the trades and be able to support a family. It just can't be done these days.